Hey, what's up, you guys? Look, I got a testimony for you. Another testimony. I told y'all I be having stories for days because, yes, I've experienced some things that God has surely kept me to and through, kept me through up to this very day and moment in time. So, this is a story in time, true story, where when I was 19 years old, I got robbed. Yes, I got robbed, y'all. I got robbed. And I was very distraught. So pretty much in this scenario, picture it. I was in high school. It was my last year of high school, finishing up high school the month of June of 2011. And I remember, was it June? I think it was either March, April, May, or June. It was one of those. And I remember being on the bus heading home, and as I was approaching the bus stop that I would get off at near my house, I felt such an evil presence. Like I was getting this evil presence, in my atmosphere, that I kept detecting, and I was like, I don't like that feeling. But at the same time, I had my phone in my hand, which was a BlackBerry Storm, one of the most popular phone brands at the time, when BlackBerry started to pop off. And I heard the voice of the Lord. I was a babe in Christ. Still learning. I was a sheep that was still learning, a child of God that was still learning the voice of the Lord. So I wasn't perfect at it, and so the voice said, "Put your phone away," right? And so I'm sitting there questioning, like, well, why would I want to put my phone away right now when I'm trying to make a phone call? I think in my mind, I also intently wanted to make the phone call to my mother. And so as I'm getting closer to the bus stop that I get off at normally, the voice is still telling me, put the phone away. So I didn't listen to the voice, right? So then as I get to the bus stop, or get off the bus stop actually, that dark presence that I was feeling got stronger. And so it just felt like just so dark, like something evil was like coming my way, right? And then I started to like walk down the block of where the bus stop was, getting through a crowd of young kids, that just got out of school. They was all loud and hanging out together. And then there were these tall, group of boys on the corner. And so I was used to it because that was the environment that I just, I guess, it became normal at some point in time. I didn't, to me, my neighborhood, my old neighborhood was not the hood to me. It actually was, it was great as far as I remember. And I think that people started moving in the neighborhood. Young people started to move in the neighborhood, and brought these unfortunately these perverted mindsets into the neighborhood, and trends. So I remember after walking through that crowd of people, I began to cross the street, and I heard that same voice of the Lord say, "I told you to put your phone away." So it was God being a father, knowing what's around at that particular time, and what the attraction was for the enemy, and the people that give, that sons of Satan, that really, or their ignorance, whatever it was, being obedient to their evils within them. God was still looking out for me, and I was learning at the same time to be obedient to the voice of the Lord for my safety. Right, so the Word of God says it's better to be obedient than to sacrifice, because then you just, unfortunately, you welcome things that you don't need in your life, right? Or whatever the affliction might be, you unfortunately welcome unwanted consequences. So a learning kid, at the time. And so God said, he said, I told you to put your phone away to me. And then he told me to cross the street. So I crossed the street, which was the side of where my apartment, my mom's house was. Cause at the time I was young, or younger, and, living with my mom. And so the Lord said, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. And God showed me what he was talking about. No, actually, before he told me to put the sorry, actually, before he told me to cross the street, I turned around and I saw the group of young, well, two of the young men that were encamped together on the corner of the block. They began to come down that same block that I was walking down, and they began to put these masks on, these ski masks on, and I ain't take it heavy. I was like, I don't know. It's cold outside. I'm like, I don't know where they're going and all that. But I'm like, they ain't coming for me. But the Lord is like, I'm gonna show you. He told me, he said, I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about the evils. I'm gonna show you the evils of what I'm keeping you, I'm trying to keep you from, and try to keep you from. And so he told me to cross the street, and I crossed the street, and then these demons, these two big tall demons, showed up. They were like 6 foot, 6 feet maybe. I think at the time I could have been like five, little maybe like 5'7" or whatever. But to me they were tall, and so they came beside me, and they one of the boys was guarding, I guess, the scenario to make sure nobody was looking or whatever. And while his homeboy walked near me and was like, he was like, "You want to die?" That's the question he asked me, and I remember thinking to myself like, "Yeah, this Negro playing, right? You playing. You ain't you can't be real," because I think in my mind I'm like, this is not really happening to me. So I asked him. I said, "What did you say? What did you say?" And I'm laughing about it now because it's like that's something else that that God brought me through to and rewarded me. So I'm getting there, right? I might have to break it up in parts. But the man had his hand in his leather coat. And so I was just like, well, maybe he ain't got nothing. So I'm about to just really just I'm like, man, you playing. So I just continued to walk to my building door. Um at the outside door, and he followed me. So that I think that's what really made me think like, okay, well, he's serious. He's still following me to the apartment door. And so I felt wisdom, the voice of wisdom, say stop. And I remember when I asked him again, I said, "What did you say?" He said, run your phone, run your stuff." So that confirmed what God was saying, like, to me as a young kid. Like, unfortunately, the phone was an attraction to the evil monitoring spirit and person, that the spirit that he possessed, and the person, the objective, the phone was that attraction. So um I remember stopping and looking up to the heavens. I was looking up and I was like, well, just stunned. And it was a sunny bright day, cold, cool, but not so bad. But I was like, are you for real, God? Like, this is really happening to me right now. I can't almost believe this. And so I remember the voice of wisdom and within me was like, you know, just give it to him. It's not worth, losing your life or just taking the chance, even if you don't believe he has something on him. It's not worth losing your life over something like this. It's materialistic stuff, and surely God will replace it. God, I felt something in my spirit where God said, I'll replace it. Now, some of y'all may be questioning, like, well, why would God, the Almighty, allow you to go through something like this? A terror like experience, Um, I'm reminded of, well, the enemy is a liar. There's people who do things and they have agreements with the enemy in various territories. But God is a keeper, and he does teaches us things. There's some lessons to learn in those scenarios, and I feel like my lesson at the time was obedience and learning the voice of the Lord, and God was still looking out for me beforehand, but I didn't listen. So I'm going to have to go into a part 2, because the next part is going to show, I'm going to tell you the reward and God's more of God's confirmation. All right. All right, guys, this is part two. I'm telling you the testimony of the past where I got robbed, but God, the Lord Jesus Christ, had a reward for me. He had the backup plan. He was teaching me, obedience, as He had warned me before it even happened, to put my phone away, which was the attraction of the evil that was surrounding and encamping on the territory of where I used to live at. But I didn't listen. I didn't listen, y'all. I didn't listen. I was 19 at the time. But after facing the thief, who did take the phone, the BlackBerry Storm that I had, which was the attraction, which is what attracted it, attracted the spirit and the person. And I was younger. They saw me as vulnerable, probably, and probably saw me as a kid, and they took advantage and did the evil. So gave it up to them because I felt the voice of wisdom say, I'll give you more. It's not worth losing your life over something like this, even whether you think they don't have something on them, a gun on them, because he did threaten me. He walked up near me after the Lord said, I'm gonna show you this evil, this evil spirit that's operating over this person. He asked me, did I want to die? Threatened me and said, give up your phone. So gave it up to him. Then I remember going up to my mother's house, because I used to live with her when I was, of course, a kid at that age, as a teenager, and I was like knocking on the door. Nobody was home. I remember just feeling just stunned. I remember feeling just like, wow, this really happened to me. And so nobody was home. So I thought to knock on my neighbor's door, who we were all like family. We were all just close like that. And so thank God she was home. And I'll try to make a phone call to my mom. I told her. She came home, or she was on her way home. And my neighbor was so generous and nurturing, and even she was shocked, like this was crazy. It was so mind-blowing to her, because that activity of the robbery, the extensive style of robbery, those activities never was really going on like that in our neighborhood at the time. So she nurtured me, gave me, something to drink to cool down. She, make sure I was all right. And I remember that same evening, trying to go to the police to report everything. And I'm telling you, NYPD was no good. It didn't matter what description I gave them, details I gave them, they were no help. Moving forward, actually, before all of these things happened, let me take it back. Oh my God, how could I forget? Thank you, Lord. Before the robbery even happened, the Lord also showed me a dream. Yes, I am a dreamer. And the dream that God showed me before I had gotten robbed, in which I didn't even understand this dream. Again, like I said, I was younger, still trying to understand. Why, I guess, symbolic, the symbolic dreams that God would show me, and the language, and what, you know being able to translate them, and discovering the gift of his voice and messages through the dreams that he would give me. And so the dream was that I was at this window, that I used to worship at in my mother's house. And I used to always, like for real, I used to always go to that window and adore the Lord, and just look up and gaze at the glory that he's made. And I would just adore him. And in that dream, I saw a tornado sweeping through from a particular pinpoint, where there was a bridge that I could see from that window, and it was like constructed out of barbed wire. The tornado was made out of a barbed wire, and it was sweeping through towards me. And by the time that it got towards me, the vision was over. And so I was like, well, Lord, what is that about? Right? I was like, what the lamb chop is that about? And then maybe like a week later, it happened again. The Lord showed me another dream right after that one. Again, the same scenario of a tornado that was made out of barbed wire sweeping through the city from that pinpoint of the bridge to get to me. Now, the first dream, the I meant to say that in the first vision, the tornado was tearing things around me. It was like tearing the bricks of the building around me up to a certain point. And then the second dream, the tornado stopped in front of me. It didn't tear anything. So I remember before the robbery even happened to me, I was like, God, what is this? What did I dream? And so surely the time came where the Lord, it came to pass where that tornado, which meant disaster, began to happen. And not only did it happen one time, but it happened twice to me. And it was crazy because the first dream of the tornado and disaster, again in the vision, it took certain things possession, right? And the first time I got robbed, it took possession. The second time that I got robbed was actually like, I want to say like maybe 2 weeks later after the first. So I was like, okay, after the first time, I was like, oh, I can't believe this happened. Even after reporting it to the police, there was news that was saying that there was a whole gang actually of thieves that was going around the neighborhood, trafficking and robbing around the neighborhood. So I wasn't, come to find out that I was not the only victim. It was going around. So after the second time, I was like, okay, I had enough. I don't know what in the lamb chop is going on, Lord. Why? It was like at that point I felt like I became a target to to the enemy. I felt like I became a target to the eyes of greed and evil, and I just felt like unsafe at that moment in time. And like, what do I do? How do I respond? And so forth in the moment in time. So I remember in the second robbery, the person was like, I remember it was like early in the morning, like 6 something in the morning, leaving out of my mom's house and heading to school, y'all. I was heading to school. I was a young kid heading to school. And the gentleman again had on like a ski mask, and he was like, run your stuff again at 6 something in the morning, mind you. And I had some stuff on me that I was going to use for good, you know what I'm saying? For schools, my senior dues, and that devil was just so busy. And so I remember looking that person in the eye, and I told him, I said, I ain't giving you nothing. I ain't giving you nothing. And so he acted like he was going to go through his coat pocket and stuff like that and get whatever he had on him. And so, I was like, again, the voice of wisdom was like, it's better to, just use wisdom, give him whatever, and, I don't know, after this point, at that, just give it to him, and then just don't lose yourself or your life for a material situation. The voice of wisdom again said, just let it go. It's not worth losing yourself over something material gain, because at some point in time, I just expect this to, I guess, turn out and work out in your favor. That's what was going on in my mind, futuristically, And I remember just after those two encounters of having those two visions come to pass, those two disastrous moments that I saw happen in those two dreams, I was like, what? Like, still, mind you, confused. Like, why me? Just feeling hurt. I felt broken. I felt unsafe. I felt like, why God? As a young person, I was like, I worship. I worshipped you. I gave you praise. That. You know what I'm saying? Like, not understanding what else am I gaining from this experience of disaster. Later on, of course, I understood more from the experience. But in that experience, again, God never left me. He never left me. So after all of that, I went through depression. I went through a depressive state of mind, feeling very down. And actually, yeah, it was my birthday time. And I couldn't really celebrate my birthday in peace. I remember just being in bathrooms crying. I remember being in spaces by myself crying. Even trying to be at school around friends, I couldn't focus. I couldn't focus at all. It was so terrible, and I felt more so angry. My mom couldn't even look at me without feeling just hurt herself. I remember my mom taking me and hugging me because I looked like a zombie. I was a zombie in confusion and just pain and hurt and with questions to God like, why, well, why, just why the experience. And I remember the day after my birthday, I it was my grandmother's birthday, my great grandmother's birthday actually, and we were celebrating her birthday at her house. But I couldn't even celebrate her birthday with a joy. And I ran into the bathroom and I began to weep again. I fell to the floor over the toilet seat and I began to weep again. And I remember not speaking. I hadn't spoken. Words couldn't even come out of my mouth for a time. And I remember kneeling on my knees. And that was the first time I actually spoke without just thinking about it. And I said to God, from my mouth, I said, in anger, I was like, I worshiped you. I'm young and I gave you my praises. I don't understand, God. Why would you let this happen to me? You say that you are this and that, and why would you do that? You said that you'll keep me and protect me, and you let this happen. I was letting God have it. You hear me? I was letting the Father have it. I was pouring my heart of hurt out to him. And I'm not gonna go there, but after that, getting up off my knees, that same weekend, I went to church, and one of my uncles, this guy, he's so close, like a relative that I call him my uncle. Shout out to Pastor Albert Jackson, and he used to have service right in his house, right in his house. That's where we used to gather together as a church and as the church of Christ. And God used to always talk to this man clearly. And I will never forget, this man didn't even know what I experienced. He didn't know the hurt and pain that I experienced. He didn't know of the robbery. My mother never spoke to him and told him anything. And being there in my seat, mind you, I'm still young or younger at the time, still in a state of confusion with questions. And I just prayed. just prayed 2 days before that Sunday, just speaking from the words of my mouth, the hurt that I was feeling to God with sincerity. And this man, God began to speak through him, and he began to prophesy, and he called me out by my name. And he said, the Lord has heard your prayers. He said, the Lord never forgot you. He said, the Lord was there. He said, yes, the Lord allowed it to happen. He allowed it to happen only because, yes, of me not, adhering to his voice at that moment in time. God was there. He was talking. He told me to put the phone away. I didn't listen to the voice, right? But the man of God began to say that the Lord said that there was glory that God also needed to know of through the experience. That if I didn't listen, I would know of his glory. I would know of the importance of listening to his voice. I would know of how he turns rain or storm into a cloud of sunshine. I heard a song by, of course, my girl Karen Clark shared, Auntie Karen, KCS, say, if you've never been sick, you wouldn't know that Jesus is a healer, right? If you've never been robbed, you or robbed of your joy, robbed of your possession, like Job, right? I was in like pretty much a Job situation where the enemy did kill his family. The enemy did, he faced God and tried to pretty much say, like, ask God for permission. Can I taint with Job? And God said yes. Maybe that's not the answer we want. We don't want to be tainted with. We don't want to be tested, should I say. But even in my test, my Job trial, even if God said yes, God was still proving to the enemy that my child ain't gonna leave me. My child ain't gonna turn his face from me, no matter what the disaster looks like. My child will trust in me and confide in me, and I'm still going to replace and replenish the possession of my child. And I'm going to give him double. And when I tell you that Job experience really happened in my life, God gave me double. Now let me stick to the scenario of the storyline of the scenario where I was in service, right? And I began to get prophesied to, and God was telling me that He was showing me, He was there, He was present, He was teaching me His voice and obedience, and also that if I didn't listen, that there will be glory, that He'll show me the evidence of His glory in that experience and after that experience. And so, I remember in the midst of that prophecy, and as God was promising me His glory and His reward through His glory, the Lord began to prophesy how He was going to bless me with a car. And He called it by its color and everything. I'm going to save this for a part 3 this time. I really am, because I know some of us got some short attention span and we can't be in a whole video for so much of a time. So stay tuned for part 3. All right.